What's up everybody, hope you're doing well, and if not, well hopefully a UT Martin off-season video will help you out today. Year 4 with UT Martin has come to a close, but unfortunately it didn't conclude as your storybook ending. In the playoffs, we had plans of a revenge tour against the two teams we couldn't beat in the regular season, Morehead State and Samford, as we dropped both those games to those respective clubs in the regular season. And they would also be our final obstacles in returning to the big dance. But unfortunately, UT Martin just came out flat against the Golden Eagles and couldn't catch up, and also fell short in the NIT against St. Joseph's last episode. But that's what my channel is all about, realism and rebuilding. Every team has its ups and downs, and for Coach Carter to move up the college coaching tree, he's going to have to continue to fight through adversity, especially after losing Saunders and Easley to graduation this offseason. But it's time to put the disappointing Year 4 ending to the rearview mirror as we jump into Season 4's player recaps, kicking off the off-season video where we begin with our graduating backcourt of Dwight Easley and Saunders, two of the most influential players that Coach Carter has ever had under him. Easley came off the bench to begin his career, but even as a skinny 6-foot freshman, it was clear that he had what it took to become a cornerstone player. Over the years, it's been a real treat to watch Easley develop from a combo guard and a shoot first point into a fully balanced basketball player as he continued to improve his playmaking, defense, and ball handling to become one of the most fun to watch point guards that the Ohio Valley Conference has to offer. He reached a career-high 29 points twice. The first time was in a double overtime game against Austin Peay back in Season 2, and then did it again in Season 3 against Morehead State. Easley poured in 1,403 career points, dished 435 career assists, shot 41% lifetime from beyond the arc, and finishes his legendary career with averages of 11.6 points and 3.4 assists per night. And by the way, I'm also going to make an Easley and Saunders top 10 career highlight video, so stay on the lookout for that. Let's move on to Marcus Saunders as he graduates as the back-to-back leading scorer of the Skyhawks, but it took him until Season 2 to crack the starting lineup. He took a back seat for the first two seasons to David Giles. You guys remember Giles? But once Giles hung it up, Saunders became the focal point in the offense, as Marcus first showcased his bucket-getting abilities with 29 points off the bench as a freshman in a road game against Eastern Kentucky, and what was probably Coach Carter's most memorable win at that point. EKU was the best team in our conference back in Season 1, and we needed to upset the Colonels to just barely clinch a playoff spot near the end of the year. His career high was a memorable 40-point performance in the second season of Skyhawk Hoops against out-of-conference opponent Fairleigh Dickinson. After that night, Saunders rightfully earned a reputation of being a microwave, finishing his career only 24 points shy of 1,700 career points, and if not for playing behind Giles for a season, I bet you money he would have flirted with 2,000. He averaged over 14 a night for his career, shot lifetime percentages of 45 and 42 from the field and three-point line respectively, and it may be a while before we see any Skyhawk player wear the number 4 on their navel again. It was another sturdy season from Luke Lawton, who becomes an upperclassman. After Joey Ballard transferred to Northern Colorado, this was the first season that Lawton started every game, and it took him a bit to adjust to the extra usage. But Luke, he turned it up a notch down the stretch and finished his junior year with some much needed momentum. He had a career-high 21 in a win against Eastern Illinois to help us break a cold streak this year, and Lawton has been expanding his range every season, and with the departure of our backcourt, he could easily make his final season his best season in his career. Blaine Fry somehow managed to add nearly 2 more points per game in his sophomore year, finishing third in the conference behind EIU's Roger Lewandowski and JVSU's Denzel Coleman in rebounding, while becoming possibly the best defensive forward in the OVC. However, Fry did take a step back in the offense department, averaging less points and shooting a measly 45% from the field. You could contribute that to Chris Faye dealing with injuries for the second half of the season, which meant a lot more defensive attention towards Fry. But if Faye can stay healthy, we should see improved percentages from Fry again in his junior campaign. Rounding out our starting lineup with the now senior Christopher Faye, who did seem to take a step back this season as he averaged 1.2 points and 2.1 rebounds less in his junior campaign. However, the fault can't be entirely on him. I mean, he dealt with the injury bug this year for sure, and after returning from his severe ankle sprain, Faye was still shaking off the cobwebs heading into playoff time. We all know Faye is very mobile for a 7-footer, so much of his game it revolves around his athletic gifts. So hopefully after an off-season of rest and rehab, it'll help him return to his sophomore year form, which was by far his best season in the orange and blue. One more season left for Chris Faye. On to our sixth man, the fan favorite Jacques Diggs. And Diggs is easily the favorite to fill the shoes of Saunders at the 2, and he's earned the position. He's got microwave tendencies, and he's built up a solid rapport with the favorite to start at the point guard position, Pierre Hamilton. Diggs is a rhythm player, so it's no surprise to see him go through a bit of a sophomore slump at points, with less points averaged and worse shooting numbers. But we can have sky-high hopes for what this young man can do with starters minutes, or hopefully he can find his rhythm more often on a nightly basis with more PT in the upcoming season. And of course, we can't talk about Diggs without mentioning Pierre Hamilton and vice versa. These two guards are like two peas in a pod, best friends off the court, and you can see the chemistry on the floor as well. The only concern for Pierre being named next year's starting point guard is Hamilton. He got into a pretty bad slump to start his junior year and never quite found himself again, a big step back from his first year on campus. But we all know Hamilton's makeup. He's an old-fashioned pass-first point guard with a high IQ, so it'll be interesting to see how he rebounds and how the offense changes moving to that style after 3.5 seasons of Dwight Easley running the show. Teron Gardner was our only freshman with ample playing time in the rotation, and through 2/3 of the season, Teron was turning heads. Superb efficiency, a high motor and work ethic, and he knows how to use his strong frame to score down low. I mean, this guy's built like a tree stump. But the problem started to arise a little bit when Gardner was forced into the starting lineup prematurely due to Faye's injury woes, and the freshman looked a little overwhelmed, and he lacked confidence as a starter. With Gene Schofield graduating, Gardner returned to the bench, and he is by far our best reserve forward and should see a bunch of minutes at both the 4 and 5 slots with one more year of Chris Faye. And he's still got time to improve his confidence before being a full-time starter, with Faye in line to have a big year this year. Davion Baez is the third senior out of 4 to graduate this season, as Baez was a huge success story. He rode the bench in his first 3 seasons in Martin, but year 4 came around and he was one of the first guys off the bench, and man, did he impress. He shot 45 threes in his senior year. He made 22 of them for an impressive 48% clip from outside, and had a couple games where he caused some havoc on defense too. I counted 4 games with 2 steals for Baez. We have to find our next marksman for the bench to replace Baez, because he's one of those glue guys that makes a basketball team run. Baez, a very inspirational story. Never count yourselves out of a rotation. Gotta keep grinding and your minutes will come. And now for the final senior, Gene Schofield. No more original players remain from Coach Carter's year 1 roster. Schofield saw his playing time trimmed down each season, but he always had a spot in the rotation due to his energy that he brought on defense and his ability to finish through tough contact. It was pretty funny to see. Schofield was never much of a scorer, but he always seemed good for a 3-point play every few games. He also never hesitated when sticking up for his teammates. We all know Morehead State, they're known for their trash talking, but Schofield always seemed to jaw right back at them, and was always a young man that you could count on to have your back on the court. Next up is the now junior Dominique Cleveland, as he shared the backup center role with Schofield and has been making some decent strides since arriving on campus. A fun fact about Cleveland, he was actually the first recruit ever in Coach Carter's career, as Cleveland committed before Lawton and Faye back in season 1's off-season. A 7'2" space eater, Cleveland's been a project player and seems to have a bit of a JaVale McGee type presence, not only in skill set but also in goaltends and foul rate as well. He needs some more basketball IQ and some more seasoning, but he's slowly improving year by year and may be the primary backup center here in year 5. And lastly, making his return to the rotation, Evan Schneiderman, who's coming off a redshirt season and is looking to improve on his disappointing freshman campaign. Can't forget about this guy. Schneiderman's big question coming into his career was, which forward spot would he play at the college level? He has the rebounding and hustle of a power forward, but the build, frame, and 3-point rating of a small forward. He'll probably exclusively play the 3 next season, backing up Lawton, and I think when he finds himself on the offensive end and adjusts to playing the 3 and not the 4, I think he'll be okay. And so there you have it. There are your year 4 player recaps. I'm very excited to head into season 5 already, but still a lot of loose ends to tighten up, including sitting in on the CPU versus CPU national championship. But we gotta find our 2 teams to watch today. So we'll begin here in March Madness recapping it, and Houston is the #1 overall seed here in year 4, making quick work through the Sweet 16, taking down UCLA in the most recent game. Baylor finds themselves as an 11 seed surprisingly, and they make a round of 32 appearance. And check out Arkansas Little Rock. Okay, maybe the Oral Roberts of this tournament, only the 3rd ever 15 seed to make the Elite, or Sweet 16 rather. They fall to DePaul, and then Houston beats DePaul by 6. So we have Final Four participant #1. Now Gonzaga is the #1 seed here in the West, and they actually dropped their second round game to Georgetown, and then the Hoyas come up short against the Duke Blue Devils, who beat their heated rivals, the Tar Heels of North Carolina, by 15 in the round of 32. A pretty interesting second round matchup at that for sure. So Duke will have a chance for a Final Four appearance as a 5 seed. Pretty interesting. Moving down the line, we have Georgia Tech against Illinois here, and Illinois looks red hot right now. They blow the doors off of the gym there. They take that game against the Yellow Jackets by nearly 30 points. And moving down to the bottom, we see Kansas taking it to Oral Roberts, then Washington State, but coming up 2 points shy of Illinois. So the 3-seeded Fighting Illini against the 5th-seeded Duke Blue Devils, who will face the #1 overall seed, the Houston Cougars, in the Final Four, and it will be Illinois. So Houston versus Illinois, a Final Four matchup that you could see in real life here in 2021. It was pretty likely that both those teams would have been participants, as Houston was. Now we look to the South, where another #1 overall seed can't make it past the first weekend. Michigan State drops their second round game to Clemson, and Clemson will go on to face the Seminoles of Florida State, who blew out their second round opponent. And the Seminoles would actually beat Clemson, so they're in the Elite 8. Meanwhile, at the bottom of this bracket, we see 2 double-digit seeds winning their first round games, but then ultimately it'd be Florida against Florida State here in the Elite 8. So Final Four team #3 will be the Gators, taking this rivalry matchup pretty handily, I might add. Now moving down to the Midwest, where we see Maryland. They always seem to be a #1 seed here in the virtual NCAA, as they make the Elite 8 here. They're blowing out everybody. They took it to Seton Hall, hanging 107 on the Pirates. And meanwhile, we will move down to the bottom of the Midwest Regional, as everything seems to be in order so far. We see V-Tech and Cincinnati in a pretty competitive ball game, but the Hokies will knock them off and then fall by 12 to the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So some pretty competitive ball teams in real life actually making some noise here in the virtual tournament. Pretty interesting. So Texas Tech will go to battle with the Maryland Terrapins, as the Terrapins try to become, or win their second trophy actually here in the Coach Carter legacy mode, but they fall by 11 to the Red Raiders. So let's switch over to the Final Four, where we see Houston dropping their game by 9, and Texas Tech takes it to the Gators by 12. So Illinois versus Texas Tech, 2 teams that we've never seen here in the national title game in the 4-year career of Coach Carter. They'll be going to battle tonight. And a big reason why everyone is buzzing about this matchup is the fact that we're going to see possibly the 2 best centers in the country go to battle. Bryce Eppinger leads the way for the 31-win Red Raiders, 21 points per game average for the 7'1" junior out of El Paso. He's a power post with a soft touch from mid-range and possesses a long wingspan, which helps him block nearly 2 shots a game. Texas Tech also has perimeter scoring in guys like Tyson Heine, Franklin Stone, and point guard Craig Etienne. And when they aren't feeding the ball to Eppinger, they'll push the pace to find perimeter shots. They're just not the highest quality looks from outside. They only shoot around 32% as a team from 3. Us Skyhawks have actually faced the 29-win Fighting Illini this season, and obviously we were blown out pretty easily. 7'2" junior Brock Buchanan is the matchup for Eppinger tonight, as Buchanan is actually better outside than in, as he shoots 37% from 3, and the Illinois Fighting Illini shoot 38.5% as a club. Jordan Loneski is second on the team in scoring, one of the most underrated players in the nation, and they surround those big guys with unselfish guards such as Dexter Webb, a senior, junior Delvin Good, and junior Leon Vargas, who all average at least 3 assists a game. You can count on Illinois to not beat themselves. They only average 10 team turnovers a game in the ultra-competitive Big Ten, and they will milk shot clocks down to find the best shot possible. So here we go, one of my favorite annual traditions here on Coach Carter's Legacy Mode. 50 team wins combined between these two ball clubs. These are two basketball teams that can play, no doubt about it. And immediately Texas Tech, you're seeing their up-tempo attack. Nice shot there, assist from Tyson Heine. And meanwhile, on the other side, it took the Fighting Illini almost the entire 35 seconds to find a shot. Leon Vargas bounced pass to Loneski. There we go. Okay, you're already seeing the difference in styles of play, but hey, both possessions ended in a bucket. Can't argue with the result. Now Buchanan will step out. A little too hard off the glass. Now we see Craig Etienne. Look at this pull-up three in the face of the 7'2" Buchanan. Craig Etienne has the first three-pointer logged tonight for either team. 7-4 now, Texas Tech. And now we see Illinois running a pretty interesting play here as Delvin Good will assist to Dexter Webb, the sturdy point guard for the Fighting Illini. Webb averages 8, 4 assists, shoots 38% from 3. He's a senior from Springfield, Illinois, and gives a delicious backdoor feed to Brock Buchanan. That was nice, the first of which should be many assists here tonight for Dexter Webb. 17-14, we still haven't seen much of Bryce Eppinger so far. Instead, there's Franklin Stone having a shot rejected by Leon Vargas, and Webb bounce past Rashad Nichols for 3. Knotted back up at 17 apiece as Nichols checks in off the bench. Illinois' 6-man. He makes his first 3 in 2 attempts. Meanwhile, here's Travis Bosley, the backup point guard. He'll spot up. What a shot there. Bosley, a sophomore from Westminster, Colorado. He averages 3 on the year, and he's already met his season average with that shot. 22-20, Tech on top until Delvin Good will drive baseline, as he faked Bosley out of his shoes there to knock things back up at 22 apiece. So far, a very competitive ball game. Gotta like what we're seeing if you're a third-party viewer like us right now. Leon Vargas has a lane. Instead, he'll make a better pass over to the left flank. And there's Josh Okoye, who pulls from 3. He averages 7 and 3 off the bench for the Illini here in his junior year. 29-25, Illinois on top with their biggest lead of the ball game. Under 4 minutes to play. Kick out. Here's Tyson Heine. Finally, he gets on the board. He's the second leading scorer behind Eppinger for the Red Raiders, 13 points, 5.5 rebounds, 44% from the field for the senior Heine. 29-27, the Red Raiders close within a possession as this bounce pass goes inside to Delvin Good, and another backdoor feed is done without hesitation there. What a play there. Loneski will draw the free throws, and Illinois is now up by 6, and that's Texas Tech's 5th team foul. Illinois shooting a lot of free throws going inside early and often today. Another miss for the Red Raiders, but look at this big man. He's keeping with it. And he steals the outlet pass and goes back the other way. There's Kentrell Felder. He's the primary backup for both big guys on Tech. He averages 1.5 on the year. And then Texas Tech will force a stop as Felder will actually draw that one loose. And they do force a stop on that possession. So Felder playing some very important bench minutes here as we tick the clock under 60 seconds. 38-32, stepping outside is Craig Etienne, who had a foot on the line, but now an assist for Felder as he continues to play very solid basketball with the absence of Eppinger and Ashton Ballinger, the 2 starting big guys for Tech. And heading into the break, the 3-seeded Illinois Fighting Illini find themselves up by 4. And it's pretty interesting to see. We came into this game with so much of a focal point on the big guy matchup, Buchanan versus Eppinger, but it's really been more about the complementary pieces tonight, as the 2 big guys, they only combined for 7 points in the first half. So we'll see whose secondary pieces performs better down the stretch. Here's Heine, who misses. He falls to 1 of 4 from the ball game. Meanwhile, Dexter Webb will foul Ashton Ballinger. And Webb, he's actually a little bit shaken up after going up to contest that shot by Ballinger. Maybe it looked like he might have stepped on Ballinger's shoe, perhaps. Maybe a lower leg injury, it looks like, for Dexter Webb. But all in all, a huge loss for Illinois, as Webb is actually going to be out with a sore knee. Still questionable to see if he's going to check back in the game or not. But if that's it for Dexter Webb, that is a huge loss for the Fighting Illini, as they're playing this possession actually with them back on the floor. Dexter Webb has checked back in after a few possessions. Illinois up by 7 as he feeds Delvin Good for 3. Delvin Good was the Illinois Fighting Illini best performer of the half with 8 points at the half. And Texas Tech calls timeout there. Webb still playing a little nicked. He will miss that three. And look at that outlet pass. Texas Tech needs this, but Travis Bosley is sent back. There is Good with the chase down rejection. What a game that he's had. And now a kick out to Leon Vargas. He'll feed it to Good again. A step inside of the three-point arc. 49-37. As the Red Raiders all of a sudden look like they are in danger of letting this one slip away, which has been pretty crazy to see. As near here on the break, we see the Red Raiders trying to get out in action, but Bill McBride, the backup forward, will take it away from Craig Etienne and put it through. Like I said, it's been the complementary pieces from both sides that are making the difference. Illinois, their secondary players look ready to play tonight. Now the lead's up to 18, under 5 minutes to play. Illinois, they can just sit on this, but look at this shot right here. Brock Buchanan. How many 7-2 players you know that can do that? Wow, what a shot. And it looks like for the 4th straight season, we're going to have a new champion here in the virtual NCAA. As look at this shot off his back foot. Rashad Nichols for his 3rd three of the ball game, and the route is on, boys. Nichols will fire again. No mercy, say the Illinois Fighting Illini. 76-54. What a second half performance, especially after Dexter Webb got shaken up there in the second half, but the senior showing that fight and that grit, that might have been the spark that propelled the Illini to a 22-point victory, hosting their first national championship in school history, and it was an emphatic one. Brock Buchanan still finished with a decent line, 10-5. He really couldn't miss. He really picked his spots well. And Dexter Webb had 9 assists. And Delvin Good, your Final Four most valuable player with 15 tonight, leading all scorers. And on the other side of things, Franklin Stone was good in the first half. He sputtered in the second. So did Craig Etienne, and Tyson Heine was pretty much invisible out there. So there it is, the Illinois Fighting Illini, your champions here in year 4. Raheem Suttle is your player of the year as we switch to the NCAA Awards. EJ Buggs, mid-major player of the year, 6'10" junior forward from Pepperdine, averaging 25 and 7. And Brad Underwood, he's your coach of the year. No surprises there. A great 30-win season for the Illinois Fighting Illini. Nazir Badiane, I had definitely butchered that name, but he wins Defensive Player of the Year for the Florida State Seminoles, who made the Elite Eight. Big Man of the Year, Raheem Suttle again, 25 points per game for the Notre Dame big guy. Henry Middleton, Freshman of the Year, a 6'10" power forward from Pitt, 7.5, 6 rebounds, 2.3 blocks. First team All-American, we got Jerome Clifford, a familiar face in another series of mine, the Road to NBA series, as that's actually Clifford's second time making an All-American lineup. Desi Wofford from Tennessee, Rondell Prosser from Seton Hall, Raheem Suttle, of course, makes this list, and James Tuttle. So Suttle and Tuttle round out first team All-American. Let's move on to second team All-American. Cameron Gwynn, a UNC point guard, 6 foot tall junior. He will be the point guard on second team All-American, along with Aiden Anderson, Jawan Sykes, EJ Buggs, and Jordan Alvarado from Charlotte. A lot of potential NBA players on those lists. Freshman All-American, we got Donovan Ellerby, a point guard from Kentucky, Jarrah Mullins from Washington, Brendan Hughes also from Washington. Looks like the Huskies got a nice young nucleus over there. Henry Middleton from Pitt, and Albert McKenzie from St. Bonaventure. Now let's look to the Ohio Valley Conference Awards, where of course Samford was your regular season champion, but Morehead State was your postseason champion. And look at this, Ken Carter with his second consecutive Conference Coach of the Year award. Very surprising, but he'll take it. He finished third in the conference, came up short in the second round, but hey, there's just another attribute point to add to his ratings. Roger Lewandowski actually wins Conference Player of the Year. It was not Britton Holland, was not Marcus Saunders. It was actually Lewandowski, the 7-foot senior from Eastern Illinois. 16 points, 11 rebounds. They never really put too much of a competitive team around him, unfortunately, but very surprising it was not either Saunders or Holland. So moving on to Conference Freshman of the Year, Josh Marshall wins it over to Ron Gardner and others. as the 6'9" Eastern Kentucky forward will take home some hardware. First team All-Conference Britton Holland and Marcus Saunders, two very good players. It's nice to see Saunders get some recognition here as he hangs him up. Isaac Yan from Tennessee Tech, Roger Lewandowski is your center on this list, and former Freshman of the Year Sebastian Farley, averaging 14 and 7. He is your only returning player on this list, something to keep in mind for sure. So let's jump now to second team All-Conference, where you would be pretty surprised to see that Dwight Easley does not make second team All-Conference. It goes to LaShawn Williamson, the point guard from Tennessee State. Wow. I think both guys were deserving of the award here on this list. I mean, LaShawn Williamson did lead the conference in assists and steals per game. Matt Payne joins him there in the backcourt. TJ Cowens, Blaine Fry actually makes second team All-Conference. Very surprising, as he didn't play the best on offense this year. And Justin Slater from Morehead State. Those two big guys are the only two returning players on that list. Jay Jennings, Siaka Badije, Sam Rigel, John Marshall, and Vern Ramlow will round out your freshman All-Conference. And of course, Vern Ramlow makes it one of the few guys I didn't make one of my subscribers. He somehow gets on this list. Unreal. Well, let's move on now, where we see our graduation set in stone. Easley, Saunders, Davion Baez, and Gene Schofield we wave goodbye to as they make their departure. The last four players from Coach Carter's original team back in year one. It's been amazing to see just all of the turnover, just all of the progress that Coach Carter's made here at Unknown Tennessee Martin. And while we're here, we're going to look around the conference to see what other prime players are also hanging it up. We see LaShawn Williamson and Emmanuel O'Brien, two very important pieces for Tennessee State, two starters. Luther Brooks, Isaac Yan, Jamarco Webster, and TJ Cowens. So that's three starters for Tennessee Tech, as Yan, Webster, and Cowens all were always really tough to beat. Now Austin P, Alan Ratliff, Sean Loeffler, the former JUCO transfer high flyer, and Karan Woodard, three starters. Eastern Illinois, they graduate Jonas Fry and Roger Lewandowski, so two starters. Eastern Kentucky will move on from Lincoln McKenzie, Stuart Wells, and Grant Foster. McKenzie was the only starter out of those three. Moving on to Jacksonville State, the Gamecocks move on from, of course, Britton Holland, Desmond Hornsby, Denzel Coleman, who is actually one of the leading rebounders above Blaine Fry, one of only two, and Maurice Alston. So that's three starters for them. And Morehead State, they might be in a rebuilding year next year. TJ Clark, DeMonte Harper, CJ DeFairs, six-man Johnny Langford, and important bench piece Spencer Summers all wave goodbye to the Morehead State campus, so that'll be pretty interesting to follow. Murray State, they lose Jamar Stearns and Courtney Connolly, two players who always seem to have it out for us, especially the Southpaw Stearns. And look at this Samford, they might be in a rebuilding stage as well. Kyle Jeter, Matt Payne, Jared Marino, Kevin Schiller, Joey Woodside, Corey Womack, Andy Kingston, and Cal Dyson. That's four starters that they're losing, along with Andy Kingston and Corey Womack, two of the better reserve forwards across the entire conference. In Southeast Missouri, they'll move on from Ladarius Kitchen, the 6'11", 330-pound center, but the Redhawks do have a lot of front court depth, so he shouldn't be missed too much. And now looking at the coach carousel, and it's always very interesting to see Coach Carter getting better and better potential job offers every season. As you can see here, he was the second candidate for Hofstra. He was considered for the job. They didn't offer him a contract, not like I would have taken it yet, but still though, Hofstra and the Colonial, that's by far the biggest conference that we've gotten a offer from to move up in the college coaching tree. We also got two MAC schools in Western Michigan and Akron. So the Colonial and the MAC, two very solid basketball conferences. You gotta like what you're seeing, as the Colonial by far is the best conference we've gotten a job offer from, for sure. Their league has competitive teams such as Hofstra themselves, who are coming off a down year, Drexel, George Mason. Those are some pretty competitive ball clubs. They're a mid-major conference size here in the game too, so that is very interesting. And UT Martin is actually met with monumental news as they go into the off-season recruiting part of year 4's off-season. They are met with the news of Darnay Betancourt, a 6'6" guard. He will be a junior next year after he sits out a year, from Oklahoma. Wow. Darnay Betancourt, and he has a skill set that I like a lot. He's listed here as a shooting guard, but he might be better suited for the point, as he's actually very good at finding his own shot. He's got a high pass and handle rating, and he looks like he can get to the rim pretty well at a high level. He's also got decent athleticism for a 6'6 player. Darnay Betancourt, he might be our point guard of the future, and it works out perfectly. He's gonna have to sit out a year due to NCAA transfer rules, and Pierre Hamilton is a senior this year. So after Hamilton hangs it up 2 seasons from now, could we see Betancourt be our next point guard? A 6'6 point guard with the mold of Alonzo Ball type player, kind of like Marco Carter-Williams when he was at Syracuse. I really like the mold in the game of Darnay Betancourt. He could be molded into a very special player. And also around the conference, we see Jacksonville State. They had a pretty decently sized graduation class, but they get the news of Brandon Dumont, a 6'9 power forward from Cincinnati. So we're not the only team lucking out. Wow, what news as we move to the offseason recruiting part here of Season 4's offseason. So let's have a peek at Coach Carter's recruiting board, where he has 3 scholarships to hand out. Dusty Harrison is number 1 on his board. He's a 6'2 shooting guard from Columbus, Georgia, and we saw him play in AAU last year. Harrison looks like a solid scorer from all 3 levels, can create his own shot, and makes up for his average athleticism with constant hustle on both sides of the floor. However, his biggest weakness is his free throw shooting, which is an area that the Skyhawks need to improve on as a team. He looks to be a lock as we have a big lead on him. Number 2 is Roshan Martin, a 5'8 junior transfer from Oklahoma. Martin has a funny skill set. He has the height and look of Jacques Diggs, but the basketball IQ and mentality of Pierre Hamilton, so almost a blend of those 2 close friends. We're in a tough recruiting race with Wichita State and Arkansas, but if UTM can steal him away, that would be a very impressive land. Number 3 is 6'7 forward Corey Connolly, who is undersized for a power forward, but rebounds well for his frame and has a decent touch from 3. The only problem? Well, who does that sound like? If you said Evan Schneiderman, then you would be correct, as we already have somebody who plays exactly like Connolly. Plus, we're most likely going to lose this battle anyway, so he's not an option. Number 4 on his board is Tommy Fisher, a 6'3 guard. We saw him ball in AAU last season as well. He's tough as nails, can stretch defenses with his shot, but he wants to play close to home in New York, so he's not an option. He'll probably sign with Iona. Joshua Bronson is number 5 and is a mature shooting guard who can drive to the rim with either hand and rebounds at a high level for a 6'2 guard. Utah State has a slight lead on us, but we'll have to see how that pans out going forward. Number 6 is Denver Matthews, a 2-star 2-guard from Milwaukee. Matthews looks like a raw athlete, maybe a guy who can develop as a good slasher down the road if he can put on some muscle. His AAU averages weren't very impressive, but he could be worth a flyer for how well he can just get to the rim. And the last player on Coach Carter's recruiting board is who I would like to believe is the younger brother to Christopher Faye. We have Friedrich Faye. I mean, come on, they look so much alike. Faye is aggressive on the glass, he likes to block shots, he'll just have to learn patience at the college level. The 6'10 center doesn't look like he wants to play with his older brother, however, as he is almost certainly a lock for Charleston Southern in the recruiting race. So as we move on to the off season, Coach Carter continues to work his magic. And as we sim forward a little bit, a couple weeks after recruiting has started here in the off season, and Roshan Martin, we steal him away from the likes of Arkansas and Wichita State. What a grab. And it's pretty surprising that he actually committed before Harrison with how interested that Dusty Harrison was. Roshan Martin, we have our backup point guard here in season 5. He's got a tight dribble with an 84 ball handler. Creative finisher with a 75 layup. He does seem to be a below average athlete, but how about an 85 on ball defense? This small dog looks like he has a very big bite. Very impressive. Corey Connolly, he inks somewhere else. Who cares? Let's move on. Dusty Harrison, boom. Now we have our backup shooting guard for season 5. Another great find. Harrison has solid shooting ratings from all 3 levels. He looks like he could be an awesome bucket getter in the future. And he also looks to be a future 1-2 defensive punch with Martin with his 78 on-ball defense. And how about his 89 hustle? This kid will give it his all night in and night out. So far, 2 out of the 3 scholarships going to very solid players as we press forward here in the off-season. Tommy Fisher, he goes to Iona to play for Coach Pitino. Friedrich Faye, no surprise there. I would have loved to sign him just because his brother's here, but he goes to Charleston Southern. So moving on with one last scholarship, I came to a bit of a crossroads here. One more scholarship, and I was torn between Joshua Bronson and Denver Matthews, and I know on paper it's pretty obvious that I should go with Bronson, right? Well, we're still trailing in the recruiting race to Utah State, and that on top of, we don't need a guy who can play right now in Bronson. We have Darnay Betancourt transferring here. He's going to be probably a starter his first day he steps on campus. So we opted to steer away from Bronson and go after Denver Matthews, the project, instead. So Matthews doesn't have to be thrown into the limelight immediately. He can take his time and develop with maybe a redshirt season and really work on his game before having any ample amount of PT, and we secure him as well. Joshua Bronson moves on to Utah State, and we'll have to see if this move bites Coach Carter in the you-know-what moving forward. And what makes me say that, you might ask? Well, Matthews, he appears to be a bit of a bust, but I mean, with all the gems that Coach Carter has found over the years, there's bound to be a swing and a miss eventually. Matthews' best ratings are his inside shot, his decent handle, but his layup scoring and athleticism are very disappointing. Denver will definitely be redshirted. So let's take a peek at the Year 5 schedule, where we kick off in a pretty decent, tune-up game for us to coast our way to begin the season. Northern Colorado, where we will face off against the former transfer Joey Ballard. If you guys remember him, you deserve a veteran's discount. He sat out last year after transferring from UT Martin, but he'll be making his Northern Colorado debut in our building. Pretty ironic there. Then after that, our Skyhawks will travel to the Sunshine State to take on the Palm Tree Shootout, a preseason tournament with 3 rounds, 8 teams total, and a lot of high quality competition there. You guys will see next episode for sure. LSU, the 17th ranked Tigers, will be our chance to have another Cinderella game. As you guys know, we always like to schedule a top 25 team every year to see where we're at as a team. Murray State and Morehead State, we're starting Ohio Valley Conference play a little bit early this year. 2 bitter rivals as we kick off the conference slate against them in early December. Then we have 3 more out-of-conference games against Coastal Carolina. The Chanticleers, they actually outrank us on paper. Pretty interesting matchup there. Then at Western Michigan, a team that was interested in hiring Coach Carter. Then, of course, the yearly tradition, our rivalry at Belmont on Christmas Day. That series is tied up 2-2. Very interesting, of course, as always. Some legendary games against the Bruins. Now let's shift gears to the recruiting preview for Season 5. And number 1 on Coach Carter's board is Samuel Barnett, a center, a 7-footer from Augusta, Georgia. Chris Faye's had a good run here at UT Martin, but we're going to have to look for his replacement sooner or later, and Barnett is an intriguing 7-footer, by far the number 1 prospect for Coach Carter. Barnett looks very solid offensively. He seems to have mid-range upside, as even though he didn't attempt a mid-range shot in this game, his defenders were still respecting him hard from 15 feet. Barnett looks like one of those guys like Anthony Davis or Dennis Rodman, in the sense that he kind of reminds me of a guy who came into high school as a guard, but maybe he went through some huge growth spurt because he was so dynamic with the ball in his hands in the post. He can pass out of the post and even put the ball on the deck to score inside. He also occasionally can go coast to coast with the ball in his hands as well. Barnett also chipped in 2 blocks, so his rim protection looks solid, but his weakness is that he needs a bigger defensive IQ. There were some times where he missed out on a rebound because he didn't box out, and he also missed a decent amount of the first half with 2 fouls that he picked up trying to reject shots. However, these are weaknesses that can be taught, and Barnett looks like he'd be a cornerstone level player in the Ohio Valley. We're currently 6th place on him, but the gap between UT Martin and 1st place Charlotte is far from insurmountable. The number 2 player on Coach Carter's board for Season 5's recruiting race is Dominic Mims, a 6'3" combo guard from Tucson, Arizona, and Mims reminds me a lot of Dwight Easley's early days. He's a 3-level scorer, he gets a lot of lift on his jump shot, which helps him score over taller defenders, and he's an absolute rocket on defense. and showed in his AAU game that Coach Carter attended that he has great defensive anticipation, and lastly, he's a very solid free throw shooter. Some negatives to Mims' game is that he's a tweener right now. He's got a combo guard skill set and it's unclear which position he'd play at the college level, point guard or shooting guard. There were some plays in this game that made you think, wow, that's a heads up play that only a point guard would make. But he was also involved in a few plays that would also make you think, oh wait, maybe he's better suited at the 2. One more negative is that he's quick, but like many young guards, he occasionally rushes or forces plays. One of the best quotes from the legendary John Wooden, "Be quick, but don't be in a hurry." Overall, Coach Carter was pleased with Mims. He has talent, he's unselfish, but just figuring out where that talent is best utilized would be the next task if Ken Carter can't score a commitment from Dominic Mims down the line. And actually, Mims' AAU team was involved in a pretty close battle here. It was a nice change of pace after Samuel Barnett's team blew the doors off of his matchup. You see down the stretch, Mims was forced to step to the line here to knock down 2 free throws. And something else that was impressive by Dominic Mims in this ball game is that his matchup, you can see him there at the top of the key right there, number 1, Menzio. He's actually being recruited by Kansas and he was Mims' matchup this game. And Mims held him to only 1 for 4 shooting. Very impressive as Mims would knock down both free throws to give his team the win by a single point. So Mims, a guy who's number 2 on Coach Carter's board, gotta love what you see from him right now. And much like Barnett's recruiting battle right now, Dominic Mims, we're currently 6th on him as well, but once again a lead to UTEP that we're not entirely out of yet. So maybe if we just continue to keep in contact with this young man, we can steal another recruit away from a pretty decent basketball program. And thus, we are finally wrapping up the list of Coach Carter's top 3 recruits for Season 5, as we have a 5'10 point guard from the Sunshine State, Brian Gill. More specifically, he comes from West Palm Beach. And Brian Gill is a very interesting player indeed. Gill showed scouts today that he plays with a lot of swagger, and that's something that, Coach Carter may not be the biggest fan of. But Gill also showed that he has intangibles to complement his flashy style, so that may be enough to even it out for Coach Carter. Gill is also lightning quick. He was as quick as a water bug today. There was a couple times in this game where he took an outlet pass and just zoomed up the length of the court in the blink of an eye. Overall, he's just a great athlete, and he can also bounce with the best of them, and that helps him on the glass as he finished with 3 impressive rebounds this game, soaring over taller players. Gill can also facilitate the ball. He threw a couple no-lookers and behind the head passes today to his teammates, and he also has very active hands on defense. As you saw there, he recorded the block there, good anticipation, and took it all the way home for the layup. However, some weaknesses: he lacks hustle when getting back on defense and has a slow release on his jump shot, which at times can let taller players close out on him. So you're getting a pretty mixed bag with Gill, and also you got to keep in mind that he can be a bit of a head case with how flashy he plays. But come on, you gotta love the swagger he plays with. Tell me you don't. UT Martin is unlikely to score him, however, as his top priority in recruiting is to stay close to his home, and he'll clearly be doing that with the likes of Florida Atlantic and UCF interested, along with the U. UTM currently 6th on Gill's list of interest in schools. It'll be a long shot, but this is a pretty special kid, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on him and throw the kitchen sink at him to see if we can make any more progress in the recruiting race. And we also have a couple more guys who didn't play AAU, but I want to go over them quickly. Number 2 on Coach Carter's board, actually, we have Kelvin Law, a 6'5 JUCO transfer. He'll be a sophomore. We are currently 8 on his board. We don't know much about him yet. I'll give you guys better updates this year on the recruits that we don't have info on, because I'll admit it, I haven't done a very good job keeping you guys updated in the season of how recruiting's going. So I definitely want to make a better focal point to give you guys, updates every couple episodes and how that's going. The last man on Coach Carter's board for the time being is 7-footer Quinn Wilkerson from St. Louis, Missouri. He's basically just a backup plan if we can't snag Samuel Barnett, the other 7-footer in recruiting. So that's your preview for Year 5's recruiting races and battles. Let's take a quick peek at the top 25 around the nation heading into the next season, as we see the Florida Gators are number 1, UCLA 2, Duke 3, Kansas 4, and the national title game 5 and 6 is Texas Tech and Illinois. Pretty interesting. We also see Georgetown's good in the virtual NCAA. UNLV's up there. LSU, we have to face them this year, and Memphis looks like they're returning to have a pretty solid bunch. They're number 16 in the preseason poll. So that's it. That is the conclusion of Year 4's off season. I am so excited to hop into Year 5 and take on our former player Joey Ballard, who's coming off a redshirt season that he was required to sit out because of NCAA transfer rules, but he's actually going to be making his Northern Colorado Bears debut back in the same gym that he spent his first 3 years of his college career. Looks to be a pretty easy tune-up game for us. And I'm actually excited to see Joey Ballard again, even though he might be sporting a different name on the navel of his jersey. Regardless, thank you for stopping by. I hope this video brightened up your day a bit, and I hope you guys are excited. Look at Darnay Betancourt right there. I'm so excited for that man. What big news in recruiting. Anyway, I'm happy you came out today. And this is College Sports Revive signing out, and stay tuned for Year 5. It's right around the corner. I also have the NBA Finals for my Road to NBA series coming out soon against the Miami Heat, and of course the conclusion for our virtual March Madness tournament, the Final Four of that's also coming soon. So we got a lot of great content coming up here on College Sports Revive. Stay tuned for all of it. Thank you for tuning in today.